Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 50.
When we talk about a leader managing a crisis, we usually picture a very specific scene, right?
Oh, yeah. Like a brightly lit control room.
Exactly. Wall-to-wall monitors showing satellite imaging, predictive computer models running millions of simulations.
Just dashboards tracking every single metric you can think of.
Right. So if a hurricane or like a wildfire is coming, you have data. I mean, it might be terrifying, but it's measurable.
And there's this profound comfort in that data.
Yeah.
Even when it delivers really bad news, we just like to see the threat laid out on a grid.
We want to calculate the exact trajectory.
Right, so we can deploy resources systematically and feel, well, some semblance of control over this situation.
But if you step back a few centuries, that modern control room just entirely vanishes. The dashboards are gone.
You're completely flying blind.
Yeah, you are thrust into a diagnostic landscape that is just murky. You're staring down this absolute catastrophe with nothing but intuition, sheer terror, and, the impenetrable unknown.
Which is the definition of a nightmare for a leader. When you are responsible for thousands of lives, that lack of information isn't just stressful, it is an existential weight.
Oh, absolutely.
It literally crushes local leaders who have to make decisions without a single metric to guide them.
Which brings us to today's source material, a text that strips away the control room entirely. We are going into an excerpt from Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio.
It's such a fascinating collection.
It really is. And specifically, we are zooming in on a short but just incredibly dense tale called Scholar Lu, or sometimes translated as the Willow Scholar.
Right.
Our mission today is to unpack this centuries-old story because it feels, frankly, shockingly relevant right now.
On the surface, it reads like a classic supernatural folktale about a plague of locusts.
But if you look underneath that mythological layer, it reveals this highly nuanced exploration of crisis management.
Yeah, it goes so much deeper. It really does. It's about empathy, desperation, and the hidden sacrifices that true leadership demands when everything is on the line. We are talking about a disaster that threatens to completely wipe out an entire population's food supply.
And we are going to see how one leader's pure desperation triggers this astonishing chain of events. So, let's set the scene based strictly on the text. We are in the late Ming Dynasty in China.
Okay.
A devastating plague of locusts has bred in the Qing and Yan regions, and they are swarming. They're gradually moving right toward the jurisdiction of Yu.
And to understand the sheer panic this would cause, we really have to grasp what a locust swarm meant in an agrarian society like the late Ming Dynasty.
Right, it's not just a bad season.
No, this wasn't an economic dip or a bad harvest. A locust swarm was a rolling apocalypse. These swarms could literally block out the sun.
Wow.
Yeah, they'd descend by the millions to strip every green leaf, every stalk of wheat, every edible crop in a matter of hours. The result was immediate, unavoidable mass starvation.
Just total devastation creeping toward your town. And in the middle of this, the text introduces us to our main character, the local magistrate of Yi.
The guy in charge.
Exactly. Before we look at his reaction, we should quickly establish what magistrate actually was in this hyper-structured hierarchy. He is the local official, meaning he is essentially the father figure and demigod of this specific jurisdiction.
But he's also just a tiny gear in the massive Ming bureaucratic machine.
Right. He is rigidly accountable to the emperor. If the people starve, it is entirely on his watch.
And this is a guy who has spent his whole life passing these rigorous civil service exams, mastering highly rational Confucian philosophy just to get this job.
And now he is facing a biological terror. He knows there is absolutely nothing in his earthly power that can stop a cloud of millions of insects.
The text actually uses a very specific word to describe his state of mind here. It says he is deeply worried for his people.
Yeah.
He retreats to his official tent, his office, just to lie down and try to rest. He is totally overwhelmed by this impending doom.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because anyone who has ever held a demanding job can relate to this moment.
Oh, for sure.
This is the ultimate historical example of taking your work stress to sleep with you. You're lying in bed thinking about impending layoffs or a bad quarterly report, except his stress is a literal biblical plague.
Yeah, the stakes are just slightly higher.
Just a bit. And just like when we take our stress to sleep, his anxiety manifests as a bizarre dream.
Right, so while he is resting in his official tent, the text says he is visited by a scholar who comes to pay his respects.
And the description of this guy is super specific.
Very specific. He's described as Shu Wei, meaning tall and impressive, or having a long, imposing stature. He's wearing a tall hat,
Mm-hmm.
and he is dressed entirely in green clothes.
Green clothes, tall hat. Got it.
Yep. And this striking figure introduces himself as Scholar Lu, and he claims to have a strategy to defeat the locusts.
Now, the magistrate is desperate, so naturally he wants to know the plan. But moving from a nighttime hallucination to an actual action plan requires crossing a massive psychological threshold.
Oh, totally. A dream of a tall guy in green clothes is usually just your brain processing trauma.
Right. But Scholar Lu doesn't just offer vague comfort here. He provides incredibly specific, actionable instructions.
Yeah, Scholar Lu tells the magistrate that the very next day, he needs to go out to the southwest road. He must wait there and look for a woman riding a donkey.
But not just any donkey, right?
No, specifically, a big-bellied female donkey. Scholar Lu reveals that this specific woman is actually the locust god in disguise.
Which is wild.
And the strategy he gives is straightforward, but horrifyingly fragile. The magistrate must intercept her and beg for mercy.
Hold on, let's look at this from a political survival standpoint for a second. You are a highly educated government official. You govern an entire jurisdiction.
Right.
You are facing a literal natural disaster, and your big move is to wake up and tell your staff, hey, get my retinue together. A dream told me to go look for a specific pregnant donkey on the southwest road.
It sounds completely crazy.
Doing that requires an insane leap of faith. If it fails, you don't just lose the crops. You lose your career, your authority, and you look completely unhinged to the people you're supposed to be leading.
What's fascinating here is how the text handles that exact hesitation. The text explicitly notes that the magistrate thought it was strange.
Because he's a rational guy.
Exactly. His rational, Confucian-trained mind knew this sounded completely absurd. Submitting to local superstition goes against all orthodox statecraft.
Yeah.
Yet he immediately prepares a feast, takes the tools of diplomacy, goes south of the city, and just waits.
He just stands out there in the dirt.
He waits a long time, the text says, standing on a dirt road, holding a feast for a donkey rider that may or may not even exist.
Wow.
And I think that's the point, you know. True leadership sometimes means being willing to look absolutely foolish. It's checking your ego at the door.
Right, because if there is even a fraction of a percent of a chance that standing by the road with a goblet of wine will save your people from starving to death, you absorb that embarrassment.
The mission is simply more important than your dignity.
But making that leap of faith in your head is entirely different from actually standing in the dirt, waiting to confront the disaster face to face.
Absolutely.
But surprisingly, the waiting actually pays off. And the visual contrast of the locust god's arrival is just brilliant.
It really is.
After waiting a long time, she finally appears, and she matches the dream's description perfectly. But she doesn't look like a terrifying deity of destruction.
No, not at all.
The text says she is wearing a high hair bun and a brown cape. She is traveling completely alone on an old, gray, big-bellied donkey moving slowly northward.
It's such a quiet, unassuming image for a god of plagues.
Yeah.
But the magistrate doesn't wait for her to unleash her power. He goes into this proactive, desperate mode. He intercepts her, setting up the feast right there in the dirt.
He burns incense, offers a goblet of wine, and bows down by the side of the road.
And then he takes it a step further. He physically grabs the donkey.
Wait, really?
Yes. He holds on to the animal so she cannot leave, and he starts begging her to have mercy on his small jurisdiction and let his people escape the locusts' mouths.
Oh my gosh, I picture this like a desperate mayor bypassing the federal government to beg a rogue general to spare their city. Like he is ambushing the convoy, holding the vehicle hostage in the middle of the road to make his pitch.
It captures the power dynamic perfectly.
Right.
A Ming official grabbing the reins of a peasant's beast of burden is an incredibly aggressive breach of class protocol.
Right. It's a huge deal.
But the locust god's response is what shifts this from a simple supernatural encounter into, like, a cosmic political thriller.
Yes.
When this official grabs her donkey, she doesn't deny her identity at all. She gets angry, but not at the magistrate.
She gets mad at the guy from the dream.
Exactly. She is furious with Scholar Lu. She complains that the hateful Scholar Lu has a loose tongue and that he leaked her secret mechanism.
Her secret mechanism.
Yeah, which is essentially her classified operational plan.
This reveals something so fascinating about Chinese mythology to me. The afterlife and the heavens operate just like the earthly government.
Oh, completely. There are ministries, chains of command, and classified memos.
So the guy in the green clothes from the dream, He was essentially a supernatural whistleblower.
That's exactly what he was.
He knew the internal agenda of the divine bureaucracy, saw a disaster about to happen, and leaked the intel to the local authorities so they could intervene.
He broke the cosmic chain of command.
Yeah.
But as in any system, divine or earthly, when a whistleblower leaks classified plans to save the vulnerable, there is always severe institutional blowback.
Right, there are consequences.
The locust god decrees the punishment right there on the road.
Because Scholar Lu leaked the secret, she decides he will have to bear the brunt of the punishment himself.
Yep.
And in exchange, the crops will not be harmed. She drinks 3 goblets of wine and just vanishes, leaving the magistrate with this supernatural promise while the very physical reality of the locust swarm is still coming.
And the swarm does arrive, exactly as feared. The text describes the terrifying descent of the locusts as they fly in and completely block out the sun, swarming over the entire jurisdiction of Yi.
But the miracle actually holds.
It does.
The text tells us they do not land on the crop fields. The wheat, the grain, the food supply, it is completely untouched.
The swarm redirects entirely. The text explicitly states that the locusts gather on the willow trees, devouring every single willow leaf in their path.
So the crops are safe, but the trees are stripped completely bare.
Exactly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. As the magistrate watches the locusts obliterate the willow leaves, he suddenly realizes the truth.
The big reveal.
Scholar Lu, the whistleblower from his dream, was the Willow God. The green clothes, the tall stature, the tall hat, the text was telegraphing the willow tree from the very first sentence.
It's so clever. The physical description of the scholar maps perfectly onto the physical reality of the tree.
Right, the green clothes are the leaves, the tall hat is the canopy.
Exactly. But beyond just the clever narrative construction, the text uses this revelation to offer a vital piece of commentary on why this miracle happened in the first place.
Which moves the discussion from magical realism into deep moral philosophy.
Yeah, because the story doesn't just end with the bugs eating the trees. The author concludes the entire tale with a very specific thought.
Right, the quote is, "Some say this was moved by the magistrate's worry for the people." Truly.
So what does this all actually mean? The author is shifting the ultimate credit away from the supernatural beings.
It grounds the entire mechanism of salvation in human emotion.
Precisely. The Willow God wouldn't have appeared, and the crops wouldn't have been saved if the magistrate hadn't been in his tent agonizing over the fate of his people.
His deep, painful care for his jurisdiction was the catalyst.
Yeah.
If he had just accepted the lack of data, thrown up his hands and said, well, it's a bug problem, nothing I can do, his town would have starved.
Because he took the burden of leadership so seriously, suffering with the anticipation of his people suffering, he unlocked a solution.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it asks you to reconsider the tangible power of empathy.
Which we often categorize as the soft skill, right?
Yeah.
Secondary trait for a leader.
Oh, totally. But this text frames empathy as an active structural mechanism. When a leader visibly shoulders the emotional burden of a crisis, it breaks down bureaucratic silos.
It provides permission for the hidden, resilient parts of an organization. The whistleblowers, the deeply rooted individuals, to step up and absorb the blow for the fragile parts.
The willow literally took the hit so the fragile crops could survive. Because the crops are essential for immediate survival. But a stalk of wheat, if a locust eats it, is dead. The harvest is ruined.
And that unequal distribution of resilience is exactly why the willow had to intervene.
It has been such an incredible journey unpacking the source material today. I mean, we started with a stressed-out official tossing and turning in his tent, dealing with an unimaginable crisis without a single dashboard to guide him.
And that anxiety produced a dream of a tall man in green.
Right. And that dream pushed the official to swallow his pride, go stand on a dirt road, and ambush a deity riding a pregnant donkey.
Which is still my favorite visual.
It's so good. And through that desperate backdoor negotiation, an entire region was saved from starvation because a whistleblower stepped in to take the punishment.
It is a masterclass in narrative efficiency. It explores the psychological burden of leadership, the necessity of humility, and the mechanics of systemic sacrifice in just a few lines.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought built directly on what we just uncovered.
Okay.
The text tells us that the locusts ate all the willow leaves, completely stripping them bare. But notice what it doesn't say. It never says the trees died.
Ooh, a crucial biological distinction.
Exactly. Unlike the wheat, which is destroyed when eaten, a willow tree is deeply fundamentally rooted. It has massive reserve.
Right, it can bounce back.
It can survive being stripped bare, and it can regenerate its leaves the next season. So perhaps Staller Lu, the Willow God, wasn't just a tragic martyr.
He knew what he was doing.
Perhaps his green clothes were a deeply calculated sacrifice. He offered up the one thing he knew he could afford to lose in order to save the delicate, vital food source that the people couldn't live without.
He utilized his structural strength to shield their fragility.